Welcome back to another episode of Click to Buy. I'm your host, Becca, coming to you from Instant Page Builder. And today I'm thrilled to announce our guest, Gintare Forshaw. Ginny is the co-founder and CRO consultant at Convertex Digital, where she combines her expertise in CRO with a deep passion for psychology. Together with her husband, she's helping brands optimize their e-commerce stores by leveraging insights into human behavior, like what drives emotions, perceptions, and decision-making when customers are browsing and buying online. In today's episode, we're going to dive into how psychology, social proof, and trust can be used to supercharge your store's conversion rates. From the power of customer reviews to the impact of A/B testing, Gintare will share actionable tips to help you transform your store into a more trustworthy and high-converting experience. Gintare, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you on the show today.
Hey, Becca, I'm really excited to join you as well and kind of to speak about one of my passions in life, which is psychology.
I love that. Well, just, of course, I know you, but our guests who are listening in might not know everything about you yet. So I'd love it if you could just tell me a little bit about your journey into CRO and how this passion for psychology became such a key part of your work and what you do today.
Of course. So I've kind of started my journey about 8 years ago. And I worked in, I guess, a wide range of different setups, from startups, full service digital agencies to in-house, freelanced for a while. So it was just like loads of different things. But one thing that kind of drove me into CRO in general was actually psychology. I did a qualification over a decade ago, which was in psychology. And I thought, I really want to do something with it. And my background before that was a science degree. I worked in a genetics lab. So I was like, how do I combine all of this knowledge into something that is feasible and I enjoy doing? And that's how I kind of leaned into CRO, and really that's how it became my job. And I've been enjoying it for the last, 8 years, nearly 9 years. And in terms of psychology, really, I think I'm just so interested in human behavior and why people are doing what they're doing, why sometimes people say one thing but do another thing, basically all of that. So I'm really passionate about it, and it is really the base of everything that we do at Convertex as well. We make sure that customers are at the forefront of everything, customer voice is always heard, and really trying to kind of base all of our strategies around that.
I love that, especially how you've taken this career where you've done a little bit of everything in terms of like data and science and psychology, now really combine that into your current venture. It makes a lot of sense because obviously the way people purchase and buy things is really driven by human behavior, and how can we try to manipulate that experience and hopefully improve that experience when they're buying online. So I'm really curious, especially with your psychology background, if you could give a little insight into like the role that something like social proof plays in this purchasing decision.
Of course. So social proof does tap into quite a few different fundamental principles, like psychological principles that does shape how we make decisions. So there's a few things that I guess I can mention. So conformity. So we humans have a natural tendency to conform to the actions that other people do, right? So if anyone is endorsing a product or service, that sends a really strong signal that it's safe and acceptable choice. So definitely going to go for it, right? Another one would be authority. So again, we do tend to trust and follow the lead. If we trust these people, if we perceive them as experts or authority figures, so testimonials from industry leaders, influencers, even happy customers can really lend credibility for the brands and whatever they're offering. Liking is another one. So we are more likely to be influenced by people that we actually like. That's why influencer marketing is so powerful in this day and age. And scarcity, so that would be something to do with that perception that something is scarce or in high demand. And then, we can kind of create that sense of urgency. FOMO, well known as well. So seeing that many people are buying something specifically can really create that, so it's like build or tap into that social proof element. So generally kind of it's those four things I would say build the social proof as a whole for
Thank you for breaking that down, especially because, as you mentioned, there's so many different aspects to why social proof is effective. Do you have any examples of brands that you've seen that have used social proof really well? Or even like if you were a brand looking at what sort of social proof could I add to my store, like what would you be thinking about?
100%. So I think I'll probably mention a few really famous ones that do really, really
Hmm.
good job. So Airbnb, they display number of previous guests that stay at a listing and an average rating. That's like amazing. If you ever used Airbnb, you will always want to stay somewhere that multiple
Yeah.
people have stayed before. Guests, I think now they even use a name called Superhost. So someone who hosted, I think, over like 100 people. That is
Hmm.
such a strong social proof usage. Amazon, obviously very famous and very popular. They feature so many customer reviews and ratings. You can filter them, you can search them on pretty much every product page. Booking.com, again, shows so many people like, oh, so many people looked at this, and we know that sometimes might be overdoing it, and it can be overwhelming. But in general, it is like a strong social proof kind of usage where they're really trying to tell people this has been used before. We're doing a really good job. These hotels, these places are really worth it. I think these brands are really doing a great job. They've been doing it for years now, so I don't think anyone can overdo them or outdo
Absolutely.
them.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing so many kind of different examples. And as I'm thinking about all those examples you shared as well, like those are decisions where, like, if I'm having a stay somewhere, like I might have a lot of concerns as someone making that decision, like
Yeah.
location or cleanliness or safety or things like that. So even just seeing Superhost, like I know myself when I see Superhost, I'm like, okay, it's got to be a decent place. I'm not going to be scammed. So I think that just shows, as you're saying, like the power of having that social proof.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, quite a few brands now started allowing searching the reviews. So I think
Okay.
Airbnb definitely does that. And I think Booking.com as well have definitely used that functionality. So if we travel with our little one, I always look for a
Hmm.
child-friendly comments or any kind of information that, I don't know, that the corner's not too sharp and everything is kind of nice and rounded or something. So I think everybody can find what they're looking for if they're really trying to using, let's say, these websites.
Hmm.
So I think they set really high standard in terms of social proof for many brands.
Absolutely. So if you're listening in, think about how you can add social proof to your store. It sounds like it could definitely be helpful in fostering that purchasing decision. I want to go to kind of a related topic, which is trust. So
Yeah.
we know that trust is definitely also something that impacts the purchasing decision, especially because some brands have maybe been accused of like cherry picking only the good reviews or highlighting certain things. So how can brands kind of increase trust in the way that they're building their online experience? And how does just trust in general play into this shopping experience?
So trust is really important, as just like you said, and kind of thinking even back of these kind of principles that I laid out before.
Hmm.
Trust is part of social proof. If people don't trust the
Yeah.
brand, if they're not familiar with the brand, it's going to be so much harder to foster that trust for them. The fact that there's other things like the fact that the website is really well designed, it does have clear information,
Hmm.
maybe efficient kind of content and call to actions, and let's say form fills, everything is super clear and very easy to use. That kind of creates a bit of competence as well, which again taps into trust, I would say. The fact that a lot of businesses might not use transparent pricing or clear policies, if you think about a lot of e-commerce brands, they don't specifically say what are T's and C's, what's the refund policy. That just really talks about integrity of the business. So if you really are very transparent and clear on everything that you do, people shouldn't really have issues with trusting your brand. So that's really important. Obviously, social proof, positive reviews,
Hmm.
authentic reviews help build a lot of confidence and kind of, demonstrate that other people have that trust and satisfaction with your brand as well, which is really invaluable. And I think generally when we think about e-commerce, when we get to, obviously we can do a lot at the front of the page of the website, but when we think about, let's
Hmm.
say, payment, the last minutes of the or seconds of someone spending on the website, like secure payments, payment gateways, guarantees, all that stuff. Again, it kind of mitigates that perceived risk, which again is a huge factor when you think about the trust. So there's quite a lot of small things that I think do come together when you think about an e-commerce or e-commerce.
Absolutely. Well, as you're saying this, I'm already getting like so many ideas and so many questions in my head. And one that kind of just like popped into my head based on stuff I've seen kind of in the news lately around like online stores was actually, have you seen, or what are your thoughts on like how a lot of people are using AI in their store or AI in their content and stuff? How do you think that's playing into like the trust factor that consumers might have when they look at something that maybe looks a little off or too good to be true?
I think there's definitely, so in terms of AI, I think people have very mixed kind of emotions and perceptions about it. People that work potentially in digital industry or, know of someone who works in digital world, I think they are more comfortable with AI. They kind of heard about it, they know about it. It's that power of knowledge. If you know about it, you're not as scared, you're not as apprehensive. However, if you think about maybe people who have not worked in the industry as such, or maybe let's say our parents, they're probably so much more apprehensive about AI. So it probably depends on the age group potentially and things like that. But I personally don't have too much apprehensions about it. I think I'm quite comfortable with it. I prefer authentic kind of things. Obviously, AI can replace a lot right now, and people worry about their jobs and stuff. But I do think that I've even come across. I mean, this is ridiculous, but I did some research recently, and I've come across companies where they can AI writes reviews for them, and then they put them on the website. That's crazy. And they put them on the website and they say, hey, you can just add the name of the customer and things like that. And that's like, that for me is too far-fetched. I wouldn't trust that brand. I would think, as much as you're trying to do too many things at once, maybe just try and be authentic a little bit more. Like, that's not ideal.
Yeah, true. I think that's a good point. Like coming up with AI to make reviews, that's going to be something that loses trust. Maybe using AI to, I don't know, you have your product on like one model. Now you want to try to use the product in a different background. Like that's maybe something people might get a little bit more because it's not like misrepresenting what people actually think about it, but maybe expanding the possibilities of how you can show things off.
I know. I mean, now you say that, actually, there's quite a few, I'm trying to think of specific brands, but I'm pretty sure there's brands now that use, let's say, if you're buying glasses and you're just like buying them online. So I think there's like apps that allow you to try glasses on just by, let's say, filming yourself. And I'm pretty sure that's quite fancy technology. Or like you said, I think there's some brands that will be using maybe different size models as well to help you see what that looks in size like 0 and size 8. So I think when it's used to help people make decision, it's really good. But if it's trying to kind of add a deception to it, it's probably not the best thing to do.
Yeah, I think what you just said there is probably sums it up. If you're making and using any tool, if you're trying to deceive somebody, probably that's not something that's going to help with the trust factor. Well, you've already given lots of great examples of like how to increase social proof, how to increase trust. I'd love to get into like how testing comes to play. So when you have these different elements that can be used to maybe improve the experience in your online store, how does A/B testing or split testing play a role in figuring out how to use these elements in your customer journey?
So that's a great question. I think A/B testing in general, or split testing, MVT testing, any kind of experimentation method is really, really good in terms of trying different variations on the website to see kind of which one performs better. So there's a number of different things that the brands could try, but generally I would say if we're thinking specifically about reviews and trust signals, like placement and prominence, that would be really important. Test different locations for reviews. There's so many brands that I come across that have reviews at the very bottom of the page. We look at the heat map and there's like 2% of the users get to it. It's like, well, why are you doing this? And usually these are the brands that get genuine, authentic, amazing 5-star reviews. So make sure that you got some sort of prominence to these reviews, even if it's not really high up, but maybe just add some sort of like an anchored link that can get you down to the bottom. And then I think another thing would be really good just the format and the presentation. So sometimes it could be, you'll see just the stars. I get really frustrated if I just see the stars and I can't click on them. I have no idea what the testimonials are. How do I find them? What's going on? So I think testing different format and presentation is really good. So, you could think about written testimonials, maybe carousels, even video reviews. There's loads of apps now that actually allow people record themselves and say, I love this product. This is me using this amazing product. And that is really genuine, because people, I think this is kind of the future of testimonials, probably, where people are not just writing something, but actually showing it. Potentially experiment with the number of reviews shown as well. Sometimes you'll see products that have 2 reviews, and some products will have 2,000 reviews. Obviously, one might be more popular than the other, but maybe trying to kind of have a bit more even numbers, or even seeing if that's going to improve sales at all. And I think messaging generally, and the content itself. So, try and kind of showcase the reviews that mention the key product features, the best things about those products, maybe customer service, maybe overall satisfaction. So it's really trying to kind of pull out the most important information from those reviews. I think there's probably quite a few things that I would be able to think of testing.
Absolutely. I think as we're thinking about it, like you've already said, so many different ideas. Like you can figure out where the placement is, the prominence, even your tip on, so because I've seen so many brands do exactly what you say. They have those star reviews right at like the top of their PDP or something, but you click and indeed it doesn't go anywhere. So that could be an easy thing to add, just to then bop down to your reviews on the page, or highlight one really good review up front, or even just incorporating different forms of media. So there's definitely a lot that could be tested. I know you mentioned that one thing you could look at would be like increase in sales, or you could check out the heat map and see like where people are looking. Or are there any other either results people should be looking at, or indicators that people could be looking for when running testing or experimenting around review placement or prominence?
So I think there's a few things. Obviously, if you're adding prominence to the reviews, let's say an anchor link, I would definitely measure the clicks on that, and just kind of see, kind of can create a lot of good kind of additional events in GA4, add some tracking, and then potentially look at funnels. So people who use the reviews or maybe clicked on it versus people who didn't, and then look at the conversion rate. So then really important to kind of try and establish, it's not, if you add something on the page but you have no idea if people seen it, it's really hard to say it's been successful or not successful. So I would definitely say kind of trying to create these funnels with saying that people have potentially used something or engaged with certain area, such as, let's say, testimonials. If they are video testimonials, a lot of times you can get metrics within these apps that will say, oh, people have been, let's say, viewed that video testimonial 20 times or 30 times. Again, that's a really good metric. Generally, probably time on page. Sometimes you will have, depending where the testimonials are, maybe like add to cart rates. So depending on the test, I would probably look at like a variety of metrics, but also engage heat maps as well, and kind of see if there's any more activity around where the reviews have been added or made more prominent.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice, to try to get that really full picture, especially if like maybe add to cart is the ultimate goal that you want to achieve, but looking at some of these other things, you can at least see what is happening when people are checking this out. Well, because you have this love of psychology, and we've already mentioned a couple of different things, I would love to know if you have any other advice for ways that stores can incorporate psychology into their design, or the principles maybe into their online store design.
Yes, of course. I'm like, this is the one thing that I can talk about nonstop. You'll have to.
I love it.
No, definitely. I think there's a few things, we think about overall website design and user experience. First impressions do matter. Clean, professional, visually appealing, aesthetically pleasing website with loads of signs of credibility, trust, social proof. Very important. That's like the number one thing. If you don't have a really good website, it'll be really hard to sell the products, no matter how much traffic you're going to send to it. So well-designed product website is great. Ease of navigation, again, we're seeing, people, if navigation is difficult to use, users will struggle. So that interface is really important to be user friendly and kind of confidently allowing people to use, to kind of move around and reduce the frustration in general. Mobile optimization is a big one. So make sure that your website is mobile first, especially if you're sending a lot of traffic from, let's say, paid ads, organic social. Surely your traffic probably be 70% mobile. And if it's broken, if it's not optimized, you probably are leaking a lot of cache through that kind of aspect. So security and privacy, that's a big one. So obviously making sure that all the secure payment options are visible. If you've got any option for people to use, let's say, Klarna, things like that, that's a big one. People tend to, obviously using it within reason, but generally it's a good indicator that the brand is flexible, has these different policies. So that's a good help. Clear and transparent pricing, like I mentioned before, privacy policies, like returns policies. If you're selling goods, make sure it's clear, so then you don't get, I guess the one thing sometimes, if you're not comfortable having a returns policy or stating that, returns are not free, you have to pay a little bit, then when people do need to return and you get some really negative reviews, and that's not good social proof. So adding this information up front can really help in the long term and kind of with that customer lifetime value even. I'd say just generally being transparent and communicating that kind of the product descriptions, the pricing, the shipping information, and finally, probably just accessible customer service. Make sure that people can actually, if they have a question, if they have issues, or kind of are not sure about something, that, either using a chatbot or, if some AI in here, or maybe having like an easy way to, I think some brands use now WhatsApp or Messenger, where you can actually get in touch with sales reps and they can answer a question for you pretty quickly. So for people to have ability to get in touch with your sales team, customer service teams, that's really, really important, I think, as well.
Well, thank you for this breakdown. I absolutely love how I really feel like everything you just said, it all boils down to what you said in the beginning, which was you just need to have a really well-designed store, period, if you want to get all the fancy bells and whistles. First, you got to make sure the basics are all really clear. People have to understand what it is you do, what it is you sell, what are your policies, and they have to be able to click around without getting stuck. Or if they're arriving to your store from an ad, make sure that it's also a mobile-friendly landing page or PDP or whatever the store design is, because it sounds like I loved what you said there, like you're leaking lots of cash if you're just having this really well-designed like ad on Instagram and then they click to something that is for desktop and you only see this huge image.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I've worked with so many brands who, they invest a lot in really, really good, let's say, organic social and advertising, and they've got really good people doing it, but then you land on the product page and it's just a disaster. Either the call to action is like 10 folds below, you can't see anything, you can't click on anything, the functionality does not match desktop. So I think people still design a lot for desktop first, and it's a big mistake for brands who are not desktop first.
Which I think so many people now are shopping on their phones, and I think I actually saw one study which was like so many people like want to shop on their phones, but there's like a certain section of people that like do all the browsing and then end up trying to purchase on desktop because they're so frustrated. I think there's a problem with that. If like you have everything can be done except like the conversion part, like that's going to be an issue for your brand. 100%. Well, thinking with like, of course, we have this big holiday sales period coming up. I'm curious if you have any advice for like any other psychological triggers that brands can use when trying to maybe display their offers for whatever it is that they're planning on promoting for the holiday season.
Yeah, of course. I think with terms of like holidays, it's probably important to whatever brands do to stick to the true authentic self, just because if you overdo it again, it can, just feel a bit inauthentic. But generally, like social proof is a great element to kind of trust, to test during that period. So, notifications, especially if you've got an app or if you've got a website where people come on quite often, really try and kind of show people that, being subtle, but showing about the maybe recent purchases, if they're returning users. I think Amazon does it really well when every time you come back on the website, it shows, do you want to buy this again? It's just something simple, but I think it does add that social validation where you're like, yeah, I've bought it before, it was pretty good, I need it again. Even if it's literally just like wipes for wiping, like antibacterial wipes. It's something really simple. The testimonials, I would really try and improve kind of that aspect. Obviously, not every brand has testimonials for each product, but maybe focusing on the key star products, for like hero products for the brand, and really potentially testing prominence of the reviews, making sure they're authentic, and even potentially think about introducing video testimonials. These seem to be quite powerful for quite a lot of brands. In terms of like Black Friday and general like Christmas period, that like intense period known in e-commerce, I think limited time offers, anything that can kind of create that time sensitive feeling, and promotions are really good. A lot of brands do that already, so that's something I'd say, tap yourself on the shoulder if you do already. Don't do it too much. If there's a sale every week, it's probably not going to make people think that you've got anything special for Black Friday. Maybe I think there's quite a lot of plugins for e-commerce stores in terms of, let's say, low stock indicators. So that's another good one. But I would definitely do it genuinely. I know that some had experience before where a brand would just put low in stock, but it's actually not low in stock, and people keep buying and buying and buying. But like genuinely, products that are low in stock sell out very quickly, and they have no message. So consider adding some sort of indicator about stock, which again will add some urgency to buy. And then thinking about, let's say, checkout, potentially creating a progress indicator, a progress banner for checkout, to make sure that people know it's not going to take 20 minutes to complete it, and kind of visually cue them to kind of, this is only need to enter this information and that's it. And probably final thing really is the personalization, which is like a big one. I think especially if, trying to utilize users that you already know, or maybe using some cookie tracking. But if you already know that people browse before, try and show them these recommendations first. Try and really be the brand that is not just showing them, oh, this is all of our range, but show them what they might be interested because they've shown that interest before. So there's quite a lot of small things, but I think if they're done well, they can have quite a meaningful impact.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that really comprehensive kind of look at all the different ways that brands could think about this, because I think, as you've also mentioned, like it really depends on your brand and what is authentic for you. So it's nice to have different options that brands can consider and think about as they try to figure out what's going to match like the expectations they've already set with their customers in terms of the amount of discounts they offer, or the types of product bundles they've put together, because I do think that I've heard from quite a few episodes ago, I've been starting to ask people like, oh, what are mistakes that you're seeing brands make around this holiday period? And a lot of people have said, so curious if you have the same opinion, that some brands are just kind of going a little bit too overboard in discounting, which becomes a little bit inauthentic. Like if you have this huge site-wide sale all the time, it doesn't really maybe hit the same as like some of those brands that are like, this is our one big sale a year. This is the best time to get it. It's a huge discount, but that's the only time of the year. Like somehow it might be the same discount, but one feels more like makes sense.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I think Glossier do one big sale a year. And I think theirs might be through Black Friday up to like Christmas, or maybe they just like do two, but in that period. But I think they're like, they've got that message and they're quite authentic, because I think people kind of almost wait for that period, but then other brands will be like, oh, any weekend, oh, Friday sale, oh, Saturday, it's like, it definitely can, I mean, it's one of the mistakes that can erode the trust. It can start feeling inauthentic. People might just think, I'll just go somewhere else and get a bigger discount because it's only done once a year. But I think generally in terms of like mistakes, one of the things that probably is related to social proof that we talked about is ignoring negative reviews. I think some brands are doing really not a very good job when they get a negative review and they just kind of leave it, and it's just there and there's no response. I think it's really not helpful to build confidence and kind of social proof. So I would always recommend, even if it's negative, even if someone complained, go back with a genuine message, apologize, and maybe say, we're glad to give you discount, or reach out to them and make sure that you kind of have not completely destroyed that relationship with the customer.
Absolutely. I think a good web care strategy is such an important part and sometimes undervalued part of making sure that you have a good experience. Because if you only take care of the customers that are having a good experience, those negative reviews can sit there and fester. And I know what it feels like when I've ordered something and then it didn't come in the mail and then I'm not getting my money back. Like over time, you don't know if you have that one customer who's just maybe was really loyal, now feels undervalued. I think your advice for taking care of those negative reviews is definitely a little gem that our listeners can think about. If you're not already doing that, maybe think about making a strategy to do that. Well, Gintare, I have so many more questions I could ask you, but unfortunately we are running out of time. So I just want to ask one last question. Of course, this is Click to Buy, where we try to help our listeners, giving them advice to help them improve their conversion journey to turn more of those clicks into purchases. So I would love to know if you have any words of advice, could be motivation or a short tip for our listeners out there who are looking to improve their customer experience.
Of course, yes. So I think the most important thing would be put your customers in the spotlight, really feature authentic testimonials and reviews, be prominent with those reviews and testimonials, and really try and leverage the power of social proof, and build that trust with your audience, and really make sure that it's not just about the brand, but about the customers as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. So put that customer in the spotlight, hold the mirror up to them so they can see themselves and your content, what you do to really have that authenticity. I love it. Well, I, of course, know where to find you online to ask you more questions, but in case people are listening in and they're like, wow, I would love to know more about Gintare and her business and what she does, where can they find you online?
So you can find it on our website is convertexdigital.com, and it'll have all information and links to our LinkedIn and everything like that. So yeah.
Perfect. We'll definitely make sure we link that in our little recap blog and show notes. Well, thank you so much, Gintare, for appearing on the podcast. It was such a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Becca. It's always lovely speaking to you.
Yes. Well, everyone listening in, that's a wrap for today's episode of Click to Buy. A big thank you again to Gintare for sharing her process on how to leverage psychology to optimize your e-com experience. Once again, I'm your host, Becca Anderson, coming at you from Instant Page Builder. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, share it with all your fellow e-com enthusiasts. Until next time, keep turning those clicks into buys.